Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Now we will discuss about Pareto Analysis and see what is exactly Pareto Analysis is all about. Pareto Analysis is one of the contemporary strategic management accounting techniques used. Ideally, when we engage a problem, we tend to focus our attention on fixing the most important problems. But how exactly do we plan and decide which problems we need to deal with first? And are there any problems caused by the same underlying issue? We can analyze the problem by using the Pareto analysis. So, what is exactly Pareto analysis? Pareto analysis is a statistical technique in decision making used for the selection of a limited number of tasks that produce significant overall effect. This is a simple technique for prioritizing possible changes by identifying the problems that will be resolved by making these changes. By using this approach, you can prioritize the individual changes that will most improve the situation and the overall effect. This analysis is a rule that recommends focus on the most important aspect of the decision making in order to simplify the process of decision making. Pareto analysis is also known as 80-20 rules that uses the Pareto principle for a theory that maintaining 80% of the output from a given situation or system is determined by 20% of the input. The principle doesn't stipulate that all situations will demonstrate that precise ratio. It only refers to a typical distribution. More generally, the principle can be interpreted to say that a minority of inputs results in a majority of outputs. Pareto principle, which is the simplest but also one of the most powerful management tools, is introduced by an Italian economist and sociologist named after the man who first discovered and described the 80-20 phenomenon. That person is Vilfredo Pareto. Vilfredo Pareto was born in Paris and became professor of political economy of Lausanne, Switzerland in 1893. Vilfredo Pareto introduced the Pareto analysis in 1896 in his book Course Economy Politique. In 1906, Vilfredo Pareto discovered that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by just 20% of the people in the country. He extended this research and found out that the disproportionate wealth distribution was also the same across all of Europe. The 80-20 rule was formally defined as the rule that the top 20% of a country's population accounts for an estimated 80% of the country's wealth or total income. This is saying that 20% of causes generate 80% of results. With this tool, we are trying to find the 20% of work that will generate 80% of the results that doing all of the work will deliver. For example, 20% of car drivers will cause 80% of the accidents, and 80% of the customer complaints actually came from 20% of the customers. Today, Pareto analysis is employed by business managers in all industries to determine which issues cause the most problems within their departments, organizations, and sectors. A good approach typically involves conducting a statistical technique such as a cause and effect analysis to produce a list of potential problems and the outcomes of these problems. Following the information provided from the cause and effect analysis, the 80-20% analysis can be applied.
Next, there are two ways to analyze Pareto analysis. The first way to analyze the Pareto analysis is the counts Pareto. Usually, we use this type of Pareto analysis to learn which category occurs most often. You will need to do a counts Pareto diagram. To create a counts Pareto, you will need to know the categories and how often each occurred. Secondly, the ways to analyze the Pareto analysis is the cost Pareto. We use this type of Pareto analysis if we want to know which category of problem is the most expensive in terms of sum cost. A cost Pareto provides more details about the impacts of a specific category than a count Pareto can. For example, suppose you have 50 occurrences of one problem and 3 occurrences of another. Based on a count Pareto, you will be likely to tackle the problem that occurred 50 times first. However, suppose the problem that occurred 50 times costs only 50 cents per occurrence. That makes a total of 25 ringgit. And the problem that occurs 3 times costs 50 ringgit each time. That's make a total of 150 ringgit. Based on the cost Pareto, you may want to tackle the more expensive problem first. To create the cost Pareto, you will need to know the categories, how often each occurred, and also a cost for each category. The next is when we use the Pareto analysis. First, we use the Pareto analysis when we have many problems or many projects and we want to focus on the most significant ones. It helps us prioritize the improvement opportunities that bring the most value to the business. We also use this Pareto analysis during the improvement projects to focus on the costs that contribute most to a particular effect. Furthermore, we use this Pareto analysis when analyzing the data about the frequency of problems or causes in a process. We also use this analysis when we analyzing the broad causes by looking at their specific components. And finally, we use when communicating with others about our data. Next, we move on to the example of Pareto analysis. In our life, we can apply the 80-20 rules to almost anything and everything. For example, 20% of car driver cause 80% of the accidents. 20% of company clients are responsible for 80% of company's revenue. Next, 80% of innovations come from 20% of the staff. Furthermore, 80% of the decision made in meetings come from 20% of meeting time. And actually, 80% of our success comes from 20% of our efforts. And the next example, 80% of sales come from 20% of our products. There are more examples of 80%, 20% rules, which are 80% of customers' complaints comes from 20% of customers. 20% of the time spent on the task lead to the 80% of the results. And lastly, 20% of workers do 80% of the works. These 80%, 20% rules can be a 20% causes and 80% effects, or 20% effort and 80% results.
Next is what is a Pareto chart and how to create your own Pareto chart. A Pareto chart is a basic quality tool that helps you identify the most frequent effect, complaints, or any other factor you can count and categorize. A Pareto chart is just a bar chart that arranges the bar from largest to smaller, from left to right. The categories or factors symbolized by the bigger bars on the left are more important than those on the right. By ordering the bar from largest to smallest, a Pareto chart helps you visualize which factor comprise the 20% that are most critical. A cumulative percentage line helps you judge the added contribution of each category. If a Pareto effect exists, the cumulative line rises steeply for the first few defect types and then levels off. In cases where the bar are approximately the same height, the cumulative percentage line makes it easier to compare categories. It is common sense to focus on the vital few factors in the quality improvement arena. Pareto chart helps teams direct their effort where they can make the biggest impact. By taking a big problem and breaking it down into smaller pieces, a Pareto chart reveals where our effort will create the most improvement. A Pareto chart applicable to a very wide range of situations, both within and beyond quality improvement. Creating a Pareto chart is not difficult, even without statistical software. There are a lot of software that can create Pareto chart automatically, such as Minitab. First step, you have to gather raw data about your problem. Be sure that you collect a random sample that fully represents your process. For example, if you are counting the number of items returned to an electronic store in a given month, you have multiple locations. You should not gather data from just one store and use it to make decisions about all locations. Second step is to tally your data. Add up the observation in each of your categories. Step 3, you have to label your horizontal and vertical axis. Make the width and all your horizontal bars the same and label the categories in order from largest to smaller. On the vertical axis, use round number that slightly exceed your top category count and include your measurement unit. Step 4, draw your category bar. Step 5, add cumulative counts and lines. As a final step, you can list the cumulative count along the horizontal axis and make a cumulative line over the top of your bars. Each category's cumulative count is the count for that category plus the total count of the preceding categories. If you want to add a line, draw a right axis and label it from 0 to 100%, line up with the grand total of the left axis. Above the right edge of each category, mark a point at the cumulative total, then connect the points.
For the advantage of Pareto analysis is the first advantage is organization efficiency. A Pareto analysis requires that individual list change that are needed and then they are ranked in order from the biggest to the least severe. The problem will be ranked based on their severity. Focusing on problem causes and the problem resolution contributes to organization efficiency. Companies operate efficiently when employees identify the root causes of problem and spending time resolving the biggest problem to yield the greatest organization benefits. For the second advantage is enhanced problem solving skill. Problem solving skill can be improved because it enables people to organize work related problems into cohesive facts. Once the problem had been outlined, the necessary planning to solve the problems can begin. The analysis can be conducted into a group and it needs the group's consequences about the issues that require change, foster organization learning in increase cohesiveness. So for the third advantage is improved decision making. When the person can measure compare the impact changes and take place in an organization, we and focus resolving problems. The procedure and process required to make the changes should be documented during the analysis. This documentation will enable better preparation and improvement decision making for the future changes. For the disadvantage, first disadvantage is focus on the past. The role of reliance on the past information in Pareto analysis can be deceptive. Small businesses owner may find that the past data does not accurately represent the company current situation. For instance, the data may include past changes in the price of raw material but not accurate reflect how they frequently and in which direction those changes are likely to occur in the future. Thus, it may also fail to take into account recent policy changes, economic decision or government regulation which can lead to faulty decision and inefficient allocation of resources. Next, inaccurate problem scoring. A major steps starts with scoring the severity of the problem faced by the small businesses. For instance, if the small business owner applies try to find the cost center, he may choose to assign value to problem based on how much they are costing the company. The cost center are vital to how the business operates, and any attempts at cutting costs could do more harm than the goods. Small businesses owner should examine the quality of relationship within each problem, rather than using the strictly quantitative conclusions. Last but not least, mistake application is the one of the disadvantage. Some business owners may extend the usefulness of Pareto analysis beyond its intended application. For instance, small businesses owner may wish to apply the analysis to his client to determine which one of the bring the most revenue. However, the owner should evaluate clients on the qualitative basis as well as the evaluating their quantitative returns. A business owner whose disregards customer who didn't deliver massive revenue dollars stand to lose their clients.